I am once again reminded that the tasks you don't want to do are the ones you need to do, because they're a sign that you're procrastinating. So I just was just reminded about that. But anyways, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Daleys Diary entry 7. Today I want to kind of do something a bit different, because it's been 8 days since I posted my last video, and I've read a few books since then. So just a recap of the last week or so. We did a bit of celebrating. I've got some family out, so I spent a lot of my time in the past week spending it with family and enjoying those moments, treasuring them. And I also managed to stick to my sleeping schedule. My eating was maybe 50%. My working out was 100%, and my walking was also 100%. So I think across the board, I am averaging maybe 5,000 steps a day, which is a lot higher than what it was a couple of months ago. I think I was doing maybe 2 to 3. So 5's good. I'm aiming for 10. So ideally, next year I will definitely hit that 10,000 steps a day goal. And then on top of that, I've been doing a bunch of reading. Oh, also before, I'll lastly mention that I could have a possible job interview coming up soon. So, and that's what I mean about procrastinating, is I'm meant to be prepping myself for the interview, but I will continue with this filming of this video. So the 4 books I've read in the last week, one of them was actually an audio book called The Creature of Jekyll Island, which it's quite dense, but it goes into detail about the United States and their Federal Reserve system and how it was created. Basically, it was a bunch of rich people who got together on an island, who had a secret meeting, and they decided to create the system which is in place, called the Federal Reserve. And simply the function of it is to keep the rich, and to make sure that everyone else doesn't get an opportunity to go above them. And so there's things like there's involvement with the government where, for example, say people are defaulting on their loans, the bank will, ask the government to bail them out. The government will write a check to give to the banks, and they basically write a fake check. Well, they write a check, but there's technically no real money. The way that it's all set up is that they create money. So they print it out of nowhere, in a sense. So for example, that the bank goes under, the government can bail them out, gives them the fake money that they just wrote. So they just wrote a check, give it to the bank. There you go, problem solved. So, and then on top of that, another thing to it is that the idea is that when everyone's money lives in a bank, and so that money gets loaned or lended out to other companies and also other governments. So it's quite a big topic, kind of going off a bunch of ideas that have been combined together by this guy. So I thought it was really interesting, and I'd never heard anything like that before. I had no prior knowledge of the Federal Reserve or banks or how they kind of function in that sense, but we'll move on because that was an audiobook. But I have 3 books in front of me today that I read that are hard copies. One is from the library, 2 I've bought recently. So the first one I read was this, and it is Developing the Leader Within You by John C. Maxwell. This book is absolutely amazing. And I believe I got it secondhand, so it was only like $1 or $2 probably. Either I bought it or my mother bought it. But it talks about developing the leader. So it talks a lot about leadership skills. It talks a lot about your attitude, you know, having the right attitude. It talks about motivation. It's an amazing book. If I could recommend any book, it would be this one right here. This one is awesome. It has a lot to do with your self-development in order for you to be a good leader, to lead others. So great book. The second one here that I kind of struggled to read is Stop Thinking, Start Living by Richard Carlson. Now, there was a couple of good tips in here in terms of your thoughts. So it talked a lot about how negative thoughts create your unhappiness, and they create your perception of life. And once you allow, if you allow those thoughts to exist constantly, negative thoughts to exist constantly in your mind, you start to, spiral down, and you kind of almost can't get out of it. But basically, one of the principles that he said is that understanding that your thoughts aren't your reality, they're just thoughts. And so I think that was probably the best thing I pulled out of this. But it was a difficult read, I will be honest. I think a lot of the rest of the book I couldn't really grasp. I couldn't really grasp my interest in the rest of it, but that one tip alone was very, very helpful. All right, now I've just finished this book today, so it took me 2 days to read, and it is 12 and a half by Gary Vaynerchuk. Now, he talks a lot about his principles in terms of emotional intelligence. Now, I've consumed a lot of Gary's content over the years, and initially when I came across this content, I watched a video where it talked about, quitting a job, and, if you've kind of had the ambition to explore a certain path, then, take it now. And so I did. I have taken on this advice, and I did, quit my job and try to pursue content creation in music, hence this YouTube channel. That's kind of how I started on this vlogging style, was because of this guy and watching his stuff. And then I kind of went back to a job, and I've kind of been in and out of employment over the last 5 years. So what did I get from this? I mean, I understand a lot of his principles. I think they're very applicable. I think there's some exercises at the back on how to action them. If I'm being honest, in my personal opinion, my journey in the last 5 years, I've probably learned to apply these principles over time. And so I understand them, like gratitude, like empathy, accountability, all those kinds of traits, character traits that I think are important to develop. If you don't have those qualities, or if you think you don't have them and you need to develop them, this would definitely be a good book. But for me personally, I think I focus on them already, so I don't. This book basically reinforces those character traits are good. So do I recommend it? Yeah. I mean, if you're wanting to develop those character traits, then definitely give this a read. Would I recommend this book? No. If you come across it anywhere, just literally pick it up and read maybe the first 2 chapters and then put it down, because the first 2 chapters are the only valuable piece of information in this book. Will I recommend this one? 100 million times yes. Now, I know John C. Maxwell has a lot of other books that he's written, so I am going to really try really hard to hunt down a lot of his other content, because I would love to read more John C. Maxwell books. They're just so empowering. Every bit, every chapter, every word feels like, it really grabs you, and it makes you feel, you actually feel more confident reading this book, because you begin to identify not just self-awareness, but some traits you already have, some things you need to work on, some techniques you've never heard of. Amazing book, 100 out of 10. So I recommend this one. I also do recommend The Creature of Jekyll Island. I personally don't have a hard copy, but I will purchase one eventually. And a lot of other books that I've read, I don't mind purchasing hard copies of them. For example, I've got Rich Dad Poor Dad. Barefoot Investor is a good one. The Psychology of Money, that is a great book. What else have I read? I've read this book by James Smith. He's a PT personal trainer. His books are good too. What else? What else have I read that's a good book? That's all I can think of at the moment. But oh yeah, sorry. Atomic Habits. Probably some more, I just can't think of them. But so yeah, that's just a bit of a book review, and I kind of gave a recap earlier on where I am at the moment. But going forward, I want to stick to my routine. I want to stick to reading books. I will start doing prep for my interview hopefully next week. I'm not too sure when it is, but I am excited. And we're coming up close to Christmas, so I'm not winding down, but you know, I'm just thinking about Christmas and spending time with the family and enjoying that period, and then kind of coming into January and going full-blown, wanting to achieve all my goals in 2023. So it's exciting. I've managed to write some more goals. I've also just slowly trying to change my mind, and trying to adjust my mindset to these new principles that I'm trying to add and implement in my life. And I really want to get into creating content online in some sort of capacity really soon. And I also want to work on a potential business, thing that kind of takes my attention. So that's what I've been doing at the moment. I don't really watch a lot of TV. I used to watch TV more so before. I mean, what kind of hobbies? What kind of hobbies am I getting into? I'm not really a hobby person at the moment. I mean, I used to be into watching movies a lot. The only thing I've watched really is Wednesday on Netflix. Wednesday. Amazing. And that's kind of it. Haven't really watched anything else. And so I will leave it there. This is a longer video than I've made in a while. A lot of my weekly vlogs started to get shrunken down into, 6 to 8 minute videos, but this one's a little bit longer because I wanted to go over those books. And I am noticing the change in me, and I think that's the most important thing, is that as long as I can see the progress, then I'm heading in the right direction. So yeah, I will see you in the next update. But for now, have a lovely, blessed day, and yeah, stay tuned for more updates and life progress. Bye.